For this video, I thought I'd do something a little bit different and a little bit cool to sort of commemorate the history of the Royal Rumble match itself. I thought it'd be cool to go through every single Royal Rumble match, all 25 previous entries, and examine the winners of each match. Briefly, just briefly explain whether or not I agreed with that person winning that particular Royal Rumble match. Originally, this was going to be a little bit more elaborate. I was going to intercut Daniel Bryan yelling yes or no for each one. But I got lazy, so you'll just have to put up with me. And yeah, let's get right into it. In the very first Royal Rumble match in 1988, the winner was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and though this one may surprise you, I'm actually going to give this one a yes. A title shot at WrestleMania was not on the line yet. The Royal Rumble hadn't become this big major attraction like it has ultimately become today. There were only 20 men instead of 30. Looking over the list, there weren't a whole lot of big-name guys, a lot of tag team guys, and things of that nature. I mean, if I were booking, I probably would have given the win to Jake Roberts, but that's because I'm biased towards that character. But considering there was nothing major on the line, it was just a fun little attraction for a TV special, I saw no problem with Hacksaw Jim Duggan winning. He was over, and it really only played to the fact that he was over. So, yeah, actually, I'm going to say yes on Hacksaw Jim Duggan. 1989, the very first 30-man Royal Rumble. The winner of this one was Big John Studd, and I'm actually going to say no to this one. Even though the WrestleMania title shot was still not a thing at this point, it just seemed really weird to give the win to Big John Studd. I think he had just returned at this point, and he didn't get a major push after this. He was actually a special guest referee at WrestleMania 5, so ultimately the Rumble win didn't really amount to a whole lot and didn't play to a really interesting or red-hot character. I mean, especially when you consider this match included Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, who was the WWF champion, and the guy who I think should have won it, Ted DiBiase, and Andre the Giant was in it too. It just seemed like there were so many other better options to go with besides Big John Studd, so this one gets a no. 1990 was actually one of my more favorite Royal Rumble matches, personally. And actually, the winner of this one was Hulk Hogan, who was the WWF champion at this time. And this is another one I'm actually going to say no. Personally, I think that the win should have gone to the Ultimate Warrior. They were setting up for WrestleMania 6. It was going to be Hogan versus Warrior. I think Warrior should have won the match and then set him up for that. And personally, I wouldn't have even had Hogan in this match. I would have probably had him defend the title against some other heel, probably DiBiase or Perfect or somebody like that. Even though you did have that great moment in the Rumble where the two clashed, I think it would have been better if Warrior just won the Rumble and then they just started building to WrestleMania 6 from that point forward. 1991 is actually kind of special because even though the WrestleMania title shot still wasn't guaranteed to the winner, this is the first time where the winner of the Royal Rumble actually ended up getting the title shot at WrestleMania. So, funny how that worked out, and that might have been where they got the idea. I don't know. But Hulk Hogan won this one, and this one, unlike 1990, I'm going to say yes to this one. Sergeant Slaughter was the newly crowned WWF champion. They were doing the anti-American angle. They needed a big, top Mr. USA babyface to face him. Hogan was the perfect fit for that at that point, so absolutely Hogan gets a yes for me. Royal Rumble 92 is one that's very fondly remembered by fans, and with good reason. It's one of the best Rumble matches ever. This is also the one that Ric Flair was victorious. And through his victory, he actually won the WWF World Heavyweight title. This is the only Royal Rumble where a championship of any kind was on the line. And I thought it was a brilliant way to put the belt on Flair because Flair's major positive attribute when he was in his prime was always his cardiovascular conditioning. And the Royal Rumble was just a perfect match to play into that. He came in at number 3 and lasted all the way through to win it. Now, that is the best possible way to showcase Ric Flair. It was a great way to put the belt on him. So this one gets a yes. Starting with Royal Rumble 1993, the winner of the Rumble would receive the World Heavyweight title shot at WrestleMania. So 1993 is very significant from that aspect. And the winner I'm kind of torn on here. I respect what Vince was doing in trying to build Yokozuna as a top heel and giving him this win. But there's also that part of me that kind of wishes that Savage or Perfect had won the Rumble. And then we'd gotten Bret versus Perfect or Savage at WrestleMania. So I'm really split on that one. It's really a tough one for me. I'm going to say, I'm going to go yes, just because I think Yokozuna as the monster ended up working out. Although there's still that part of me that wishes Savage or Perfect had won. Royal Rumble 94 actually had 2 winners, as Bret Hart and Lex Luger ended up being the co-winners of the Royal Rumble, the only time that has ever happened. And I'm going to say yes to that. I thought the situation they created was very interesting, and I think it created a very interesting dynamic for WrestleMania 10. And it worked out in a big way when Bret eventually won in the main event. So Bret and Luger both sharing the Rumble win I thought was a good idea, so yes. Royal Rumble 1995 was famously won by Shawn Michaels, who entered in at number 1 and lasted all the way through to ultimately win the Rumble. And this one had to be a yes, because if you look at the roster for this particular Rumble, it was pretty sad. And Shawn was really the only interesting option, especially given his history with the champion Diesel. So Shawn Michaels winning, no-brainer, it's a yes. 1996 was also won by Shawn Michaels, this time through the injury storyline that they did where Shawn's concussion kept him out of action and he made his return at the Rumble, and it set him up for his path to WrestleMania where he ultimately beat Bret for the title. It was the perfect, fall, rise, redemption story for the babyface. Shawn had to win this one. It was a no-brainer, so yes, another one for Shawn Michaels, absolutely. 1997 was the first of 3 Royal Rumbles won by Stone Cold Steve Austin, a Rumble record. And quite honestly, I'm going to give this one a no, and that's only because of what happened following the Rumble. It was clear to me that they had no plan for WrestleMania 13, and I don't even know what the plan was. It's kind of, there were different stories and conflicting, theories on what the plan was supposed to be, and Shawn losing his smile kind of threw everything out of whack, and they ultimately just took Austin out of the title picture, and the main event ended up being a very uneventful Undertaker versus Sid match, and I just look back on it and think, okay, well, if the match ended up being Undertaker and Sid, then perhaps Undertaker should have won the Rumble, and then they just kept Bret and Austin rolling from that point forward, but everything just kind of got fucked up and jumbled. It's certainly not a slight on Austin's character. It's not. He was a dynamic character. It just, everything booking-wise just kind of got fucked up and jumbled, the whole thing, so, yeah. 1998 was won by Stone Cold Steve Austin, his second Rumble victory. This time he was the biggest babyface in the company on the path to one of the biggest WrestleManias in history with all the media hype surrounding Mike Tyson and everything, and with DX, on top with Shawn as champion. Was there anybody else to win this besides Austin? This one was one of the most obvious Rumble wins, but he had to win this, so absolutely this one gets a yes, no question. Now, Royal Rumble 1999 is actually one of the more controversial ones because it was won by Vince McMahon. And this might shock you, but I'm actually going to say yes to this one. I think it added an extra roadblock on Austin's path to WrestleMania 15 and allowed for that big attraction match in February where Austin had to beat McMahon in the steel cage match to get to the WrestleMania title shot. So even though it was unconventional, I'm actually going to say yes to Vince McMahon ultimately winning that Royal Rumble because it was also a good stepping stone in the Austin Rock build-up. Towards their match at WrestleMania 15. So they had a plan, and there was a reasoning and a method to the madness. So I thought it worked, so yeah, McMahon gets a yes. Royal Rumble 2000 was won by The Rock, and I don't think anybody is going to say no to that one. He was the hottest babyface in the company at that point, especially with Austin on the shelf thanks to his neck surgery. And there really was no other option to go with. This was Rock's year. And he actually should have won the title at WrestleMania. That was a major mistake they made. But Rock winning the Rumble, absolutely yes. The 2001 Royal Rumble match is actually one of my favorites. I know that one's a big fan favorite as well. Austin won that one, winning his 3rd Rumble and setting the record. And honestly, that one gets a yes because the match they needed to do at WrestleMania was Rock versus Austin, face versus face. And whoever didn't win the Rumble was going to have to beat Kurt Angle for the title in February. So it had to be either Austin or Rock that won this one. They went with Austin. Rock won the title the next month. It worked out fine. There you go. This one gets a yes. I think the 2002 Royal Rumble had one of the more obvious Rumble winners going into it. I think everybody knew that Triple H was going to win, and it was a good call. He had just come back from the long injury. He got that massive pop when he came back, so he was red hot upon arrival. And it just seemed like a perfect fit for him to actually win the Royal Rumble and put him on the path to WrestleMania and ultimately win the title. Unfortunately, when we get to WrestleMania, that's where things kind of get fucked up. But as far as Triple H winning the Rumble, that was completely fine. 2003 was another obvious one. Did anyone not know that Brock Lesnar was going to win that match? They pretty much created the situation so that you had to assume that Lesnar was going to win because he was the only one that really had a storyline or a plot going into this particular Rumble that would make you think that he's actually going to win it. So, and that's fine. Lesnar was their shiny new toy, and they wanted to push him to the moon, and much like the Ultimate Warrior before him. So it just seemed appropriate for him to win the Rumble and then put him on the path to WrestleMania. So I'm going to give a yes to Brock Lesnar. I don't know what y'all talking about. There was no Royal Rumble in 2004. I don't know what to tell you. There just was no Royal Rumble in 2004. Some people seem to be under the delusion that a man who never existed named Chris Benoit was victorious in the Royal Rumble, starting at number 1 and winning the match in a great effort where it played to his strengths and then ultimately put him on the path to WrestleMania 20, which of course we all know is ridiculous. I mean, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H versus a human shadow was the main event at WrestleMania 20, with Triple H doing a job to this phantom presence that was never named and never really existed. It was all just a figment of everybody's imagination. But given the storyline situation of this imaginary situation of this Rumble that never happened, I would say that this person that you call Chris Benoit would be a good Royal Rumble winner under those circumstances. But like I said, this match never happened. Royal Rumble 2005 almost had co-winners, as Batista and John Cena were eliminated at the same time at the end, but rather than just award the win to both men like they did in 1994 to Luger and Bret Hart, they decided to just restart the match and was ultimately won by Batista, who was a good choice to win it. I'm going to give him a yes. John Cena and Batista were the two megastars that they wanted to make at WrestleMania 21. Those are the storylines they had in place. There weren't really significantly better options at the time. Edge was still a work in progress as a character. There were other things in play. Orton had already been ruined by that point, so really Cena and Batista were their only options, and they went with Batista, and the dynamic they created with Triple H at least made for decent television early on. So I'm going to give a yes to Batista. I was fine with that. You know, I just realized I haven't handed out too many no's. We probably need to even that out. The 2006 Royal Rumble was won by Rey Mysterio, which was a feel-good moment, but I don't know, the world title situation, and maybe it had to do with Batista's injury, but it just seemed like it was just a mess. They didn't really have much of a plan or direction. Angle was just holding the belt just to hold it, it felt. And his match with Undertaker in February, to me, was probably a more WrestleMania-worthy match than, you know, the casket match they did with Mark Henry or the three-way that they ultimately did with Ray, Orton, and Angle. And I don't know, I probably would have given the win to Randy Orton and just do Angle and Orton at Mania, or maybe use Taker as a surprise entrant and have him face Angle. I don't know, I just never really bought into Rey Mysterio as World Heavyweight Champion. Nothing against him as a worker, I just had a hard time buying into it, and maybe it also had to do with the whole exploiting Eddie's death storyline that they had going as well, which was really kind of disturbing and unsettling to watch. So I'm going to give Rey Mysterio a no. Royal Rumble 2007 is another one that I'm a huge fan of. This is one of the better Rumble matches, especially for that ending between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. And Undertaker ultimately won this match, and I'm going to give it a yes. The SmackDown brand at that point did not have a whole lot to offer in terms of big matches. It was just Batista holds the belt, and that's all we have. Him facing Undertaker at WrestleMania was at least a big match that they could offer. So Undertaker winning the Royal Rumble was pretty much the move that they had to make, just to make the SmackDown side of things even remotely interesting. So Undertaker gets a yes. Ah, fuck crackers. This is the one that Cena won, isn't it? Oh, god damn it. Well, you know what? I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot to go with in this Rumble, unfortunately. It was either going to be Cena or Triple H. Cena was actually a surprise entrant. He was injured at the time, and they saved him for number 30 and made him the big surprise of the match. Although, if I recall correctly, PS Power called that Cena was going to be back in time for the Rumble. I'm pretty sure he did. My memory's a little fuzzy, but I mean, I just didn't give a shit because it's John Cena, and I was so sick of Cena by then. This was 2008. I mean, we're talking like, 5 years ago, and I was sick of Cena back then, and here we are 5 years later, and he's going to win another one. But, god damn it, I guess a yes out of necessity because there wasn't a whole lot to do. Although he ended up spending his Rumble title shot in February, which I didn't know you could do that. But you're just making up the rules as we go. WWE, okay. But whatever, I didn't really give a fuck. I guess I'll give Cena a very half-hearted yes, but whatever. 2009's Royal Rumble was won by Randy Orton, and I thought that was the good way to go, especially when they did the whole angle where he punted Vince McMahon in the head as he was about to be fired. The Royal Rumble win was a perfect way to keep him under contract and give him a reason for not getting fired, is that he had legal claim to a WrestleMania title shot. So just for that storyline that they put in place, Randy Orton pretty much had to be the winner here, so Randy Orton gets a yes. The 2010 Royal Rumble was won by Edge, another superstar returning from injury to come back and, as a shock, win the Royal Rumble. You know, it's funny how Edge always became that guy that was like, hey, so-and-so's hurt, or we don't really have anybody else to carry the belt, or whatever. Can you do this for us? Can you be in this spot for us? Can you hold that belt? Can you win the Royal Rumble? It's funny how Edge became sort of Mr. Reliable in that aspect, and he pretty much won the Royal Rumble out of necessity because whatever storyline I had in my mind of what they were going to do with CM Punk as champion had pretty much been fucked to all hell. And so Edge and Jericho was a decent plan B, at least in concept. So I guess Edge winning was fine. He was pretty much the reliable option to go with, and he was a big enough star, so Edge winning was fine. The 2011 Royal Rumble is significant for being the first and to date only, thank God, 40-man Royal Rumble, which didn't work out quite as well as they'd hoped. This is actually one of my least favorite Royal Rumble matches. But the winner was Alberto Del Rio, which is a move that I'm going to give a no to because I don't think Alberto Del Rio's heel character was that interesting. I didn't think he was well built up enough. I didn't think they built him up well following the Rumble win. And Edge's final WrestleMania match. WrestleMania match ended up being this kind of ordinary match with Alberto Del Rio that really didn't have any bite to it or major storyline driven intrigue. And quite honestly, I kind of, looking back on it, I kind of wish they'd given it to Christian, so it'd be Edge versus Christian for the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania, and that would be Edge's last WrestleMania match. But, you know, whatever. And finally, we have the 2012 Royal Rumble, which was won by Sheamus. And this one I am going to give a big, fat no to. And the reason is because the week before the Rumble on Raw, they had Chris Jericho say one line, "This Sunday will be the end of the world as you know it." And because of that one line, Chris Jericho should have won the Royal Rumble to make his match with CM Punk more interesting, start their build-up and their animosity at the Royal Rumble itself, and allow for a stronger build-up from that point forward. What'd they do? They give the win to Sheamus, and just so they could set up this match with Daniel Bryan that got no build-up, no promotion, no reason to really give a shit beyond, you know, hey, do you like these two workers? Maybe. Okay, here's this match. And then the match ended up just being 18 seconds anyway, so it just rendered the entire thing pointless anyway. So Sheamus gets a no. Jericho should have won the Rumble this year.